the number one reason to play Sapphire Steel is to essentially get a +7 after you have like no cards in hand and seeing be prepared in your opponent's discard and just like
All right, so let's talk about one of the most controversial cards in the game, A Whole New World. All right.
is this one's hard. I want to say Fox. That card is just too good. Fox is just too good. Oh my god! At least make it uninkable.
So this one might be hard. I need you to choose one. To either play in Worlds or PPG hosting Worlds. All right, welcome back to the Forbidden Mountain. Today we are sitting down with, once again, Mr. George Machado of PPG. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh man, good, excited. Just came off the top 8, so that was really exciting. I usually don't get the opportunity to play too much, too busy, but it lined up perfectly, so we did it.
That's all we can hope for, right? So
Yeah.
let's get into your top 8 deck here. So you decided to play Sapphire Steel. So why don't you give me a little bit of a rundown of your tournament?
Yeah, so it was pretty smooth. I think I started round 1. Funny enough, I guess I'm a pixel born scrub, but I started with timers on. Obviously, typical card game player, not reading, and so I lost game 1 off the rip, and I was like, wow, these timers are really unforgiving. Like, you know,
Yeah.
uh, and I don't even know what the timer like. You like draw for turn, and then it goes like 5, 4, and I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even get to think yet. Uh, so I lose miserably. I'm like, how's my opponent have so much time to play the game, and I only get like 5 seconds?
Oh man.
Uh, I didn't even know that was a feature. I figured it
Yeah.
was a tournament, so like let's turn on the timer, and yeah, that wasn't fun. So after I lost game 1,
Yeah.
I was able to 2-0 him back, and then that started like the undefeated streak, which I think I ended up dropping the first loss like maybe round 7. No, yeah, round 7, and I had to go win. Yeah, so round 7 was my first loss.
All right, not bad.
Um,
So starting 6-0 puts you in a really good position.
yeah, so it was really fun. I wanted to play something that was different. I really hate like the Ruby Amethyst deck, and I just didn't want to play a bunch of mirrors. And I've been playing the Sapphire deck for a while since the beginning of the format. Really, when Ruby Amethyst started like solidifying itself as like the top deck, I think around GalaxyCon. Um, I was just like, let me just play. Like, I think Steel's really well positioned because it beats like this super hyper aggressive, which we saw at GalaxyCon Yellow, the Amber
Amethyst.
Amethyst deck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you're not Steel, I don't think you could beat this deck.
Okay.
So I was like, let me go Steel. And then I really love ramping, just like in general. My play style is very ramp control. So I was like, well, I got the control in Steel
Yeah.
and I got the ramp for big bombs in blue. And then I didn't get to play in any tournaments, obviously, or anything like that. I played a little bit of Pixelborn. Like I would play a lot of Pixelborn because I fly a lot, you know. So we
Right.
do all these shows all over the place. So I typically have Wi-Fi on the plane, or I have Wi-Fi in the lounge. And once I catch up on work, my little de-stressor is playing Pixelborn. So I kind of do that to make sure that I stay up to date with the game, even though I'm not playing it. So I do this for a lot of different games.
Now do you still get to play like on your local league nights from time to time or nah?
No, unfortunately, I used to back, a couple years ago. I was able to play in a lot more, but now it's just becoming now with all these like things that we're doing, like we're operating on so many different axes now
Yeah.
that it's almost like no time because after like your full work day, you're typically spending the rest of your day with like your wife, home,
Yeah.
family, and
Fair.
stuff like that. So I don't really have too much time. Um, so yeah, I played every so often, and then I saw recently somebody did really well with the Steel Sapphire as well too, a Yu-Gi-Oh player, funny enough,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, what the heck, this is my deck, pretty
Yeah.
much. He had some cool like little text like Corella and stuff like that I didn't think
Okay.
about.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, cool, Corella, really cool. I added that stuff in, and I've always been playing item removal, and that was the only thing that I was just like kind of worried about not playing some type of item removal. Um,
Now it's
but other
funny
than
because
that, I mean, it was
I'm
funny
sure
because he
you
was on the money.
I'm sure you haven't had time to watch the meta report that came out this morning yet, but I did. The one card that the moment I saw that it was your deck and I looked at it, I saw the Beast, We're not talking about Tragic Hero here, right? We're talking about Hardheaded. Tell me
Not the
about
sad
the
boy.
inclusion of this card because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I mean, just to pretty much talking back on the item removal part, it was just like you can't beat Spellbook in the Amethyst deck. So and then opposing deck. So I figured this deck would be a lot more popular now that somebody had a high placing finish with it in the last large Pixelborn event. So I'm like, well, I need to have some type of item removal for the mirror match and against Amethyst in general. So I was just like, why don't we just play a 5 drop that can sing,
Right.
that's big, that can lure for 2, get you back in the game,
Yeah.
and Beast also didn't do it, but you can go 5 drop into the other 5 drop if you really wanted to.
Oh,
I
you can
don't know a
shift.
situation where that would, yeah, I don't
Oh,
know a
okay. Yeah.
situation where that would pop up, but hey, I mean,
Yeah,
like you can,
honestly,
I guess.
that's funny because like I think I was one of the first people that really was about shifting Elsa onto Elsa in set
Yeah,
one. I didn't even once think about shifting Tragic Hero onto this guy. I
you
never
can.
even thought about it.
Yeah, it hasn't popped up yet. I don't know.
Yeah. No, no,
But
that is interesting. It is interesting.
yeah, but I just wanted some amount. I wanted 3 item removal pieces, and I was on 3 Judy Hops for a while.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, you know what? Why don't we just like cut down on Judy Hops, play a Beast? Because like if it's dead, if the item removal is dead in the matchup, I'd rather play a 5 mana,
Right.
dude
Right.
that's big, instead of like something that could be easily removed like the Judy Hops. So that was a big switch. And then the Nothing to Hide, like that's a 4 of, I think, no matter what. I've been playing as a 4 of since day one. Like being able to see your opponent's hand is just so insane, especially when like when you have a lot of format knowledge.
Yeah.
And I felt like I did from the amount of games that I was able to jam. Obviously, I haven't been able to jam the ladder like crazy, but like
Sure.
once you get a general idea, you're like, okay, well, this deck is doing this, this, and this. So Nothing to Hide just allows for so much, just like outplay or predictability, or like being able to not plan to be prepared and do all this stuff. So I was like, I need this as a 4 of, because there's also a lot of times that you're like awkward. Like turn 3, you go Quill, that's your like curve, and then you mana a card, and then you
Oh yeah.
wanna you
You
want
just
to use
have
that
that
last
extra
mana, right?
resource. Yeah.
Yeah, so you go Nothing to Hide, and you're like, okay, now do I lay down the Cogsworth or the Beast, right, or the
Right.
Tink, or like it really just helps you. Do I wheel here, on the next turn, or do I not? Like
Right.
it's just so good. The card is great.
Fair enough. Talk to me about Cogsworth.
This card, since it was revealed, I was like, this card is insane. Like, how are
Yeah.
people not playing this? And it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I guess it just had to do with Sapphire just being like, I guess the underwhelming color in the entire set. But
I mean, did
Cogsworth
you
is
say
just so good. Like
Sapphire or Emerald? I felt like you said Sapphire. You
Sapphire,
must have meant Emerald, right?
well,
You're
yeah.
okay.
Well, no. Remember, during reveal season, Emerald was everybody was like, "This is overpowered. Bella
Yeah.
is so good. All this stuff," and I'm like,
What
"Oh,
happened?
this Cogsworth card is insane."
No,
So
that
I
card's
don't
really
know.
good. Right. Right.
Yeah, I just want to play this.
Yeah.
Like so ward and resist is such a good keyword, and then it helps you into the other steel matchups, and it's just
Yeah.
like once you set up 2 of those, it's like game. It's like a lock.
Yeah.
Like they both have ward, they both have resist, and now all your other things have resist too. And so yeah, it's one of my favorite cards to play for sure. I love Cogsworth. The beginning version of the build, I was playing 2 drop Cogsworth, so I could
Oh,
turn 3 wheel them. So I could go
right.
turn 2 Cogsworth, turn 3 wheel.
It just
And I
wasn't
was
really
playing,
necessary, right?
yeah, and I was playing Baby Tink, and then there was a lot of games where I was just drawing the 2 drop and the 3 drop, like the babies of those versions, and they were just bricking me.
Yeah.
So I ended up cutting them, but that was the initial version of the list because I'm like, why don't we do what Amber Steel Wheel is doing,
Yeah.
but just do it in Sapphire? Because in
Right.
Sapphire, if you establish these Cogsworths
Yeah.
and you lay down these Hades and you have Let It Go, like both of those cards are just insane.
Yeah.
And then you just have Bell to get you back into the game. You literally just like get back into the game with 1 card.
Yeah.
So
Belle is definitely one of those characters that it when it's great, and then when it's not, you're just like, all right, well, they had to answer it.
yeah,
They had to
it
do it.
forces you to have an answer. Like
Right.
you play so many bombs, you're like, okay, out this Bell, out this Hiram, out this Hades, like or Hades. Sorry, I come from Yu-Gi-Oh. I call him Hades. I don't know.
Hades. I mean,
Yeah, from Dark
listen,
Ruler Hades from Yu-Gi-Oh.
they'll tear you apart in the comments. Don't worry about
I
it.
know. Stop. I'm sorry. I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player.
So, for me, this is definitely the core to this deck. Hiram, when he first came out with Popsicles, it was all about Ruby. It took, honestly, about 6 or 7 weeks for this deck to really gain popularity. There were versions of it that were top 8ing, ironically, in your Florida area. in like the early December and things like that. But Hiram coming over to Steel created a real consistency for this deck. So, what do you think that he really does bring to it?
I think it's so good because like your opponent is expecting you to wheel every single time, and they're just like, oh, they're just gonna run out of cards, wheel, and as long as I run out of cards with them, they're gonna wheel, and I'm gonna be able to get back. And it's like, actually, I'm not gonna wheel you. I'm just gonna hire them and just keep
Yeah,
like pot of greeting you.
yeah,
Sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh.
no,
I'm
that's a
gonna
good
keep playing
one.
upstarts and pot of greeds and like all these cantrips, which are just
Yeah,
cards that continue to you know really fuel the greediness of a deck of what you're playing and help you find those answers because you're going through this deck and now your opponent's kind of expired all their resources because they thought that you're going to wheel and they didn't want to hold removal for the Hiram or whatever. And
Mhm.
now you're just like, getting back in the game single handedly with that card. So it was really strong. Also, a card that I saw people playing like two or three of, and I was like, I have to play four of this. Like, this card is insane.
Right,
Also, helps you recover off of a Be Prepared really well. So once they
right,
Be Prepared you, that's what I would typically do. I would hold the Hiram. Also, in this game, in this deck, you would play the Hiram out, then wheel them, then not trigger the Hiram on summon,
Mhm.
then you would go wheel. Then the
Yeah,
next turn you would go Hiram draw two, and then now you
right,
have like you don't lose the card advantage, you don't lose the item, you keep the
right.
item, you still have the Hiram on board, and you save your ink for plays
It
on the board.
also, I mean, it creates the option, which is the crazy
Yeah,
part, right? So it's like maybe you're digging
exactly.
for the
You don't
wheel,
have
so
to.
you need to do
Yeah,
it. But if you're not, you're like, oh, I'll just keep this card in play, and we'll get it when we get it.
it's got
It's powerful.
six.
No, it's huge.
It's
It's
got
massive.
six life essentially.
Yeah.
It's not dying.
So really, just the Sapphire blend here. It's been very difficult for Sapphire to find success in Lorcana. Early on we had the Ruby pairing that was doing well. It pops up from time to time, but since a couple weeks ago when the deck finished in second place, it really brought out what Steel was bringing to Sapphire. So talk to me about these cards and really why they are, the reason why this deck is kind of working out.
Yeah, so the problem with Sapphire is it has like tall removal, but it doesn't have wide removal. So
Right.
what Grab Your Swords and Tinkerbell brought to the table was that wide removal. So the point that you can deal three to the board or deal two to the board or whatever in combination. And then Beast was just another card advantage engine that you can just sit there, similar to Hiram, where if you exhaust all your opponent's resources, sometimes I would just stick a beast and stick another beast. And now I'm just like drawing three cards a turn, right? And my opponent is just like, well, I didn't have any outs because I just like
And your
draw
opponent
my
was like, he was going to wheel. Why didn't
yeah,
he wheel?
exactly. So like, it lets you not play as obvious as this deck did last format. That was the big reason. That was the big like I guess difficulty of playing this version last format in set one,
Right,
because it was just like ink your whole hand, beast mirror, and then like they knew you were going to do that and wheel them. It's the only thing that you can do.
right.
Here, you have so many other avenues other than doing that. So yeah, grab your swords and Tinkerbell, wide removal, beast, being able to just like have another option of sitting there once you expire all your resources and put it all in your ink so that it doesn't feel completely awful. And even if he does get pinged, 7 power, just like
Mhm.
being able to turn sideways and kill anything is just super duper good. So
Fair. All right, so let's talk about one of the most controversial cards in the game, A Whole New World. All right.
yeah,
This card is definitely one of the most powerful cards in the game. From like a card game player, competitive game player, what is your honest feeling about the strength level of this card?
yeah. I mean, it's a risky card, right? Like I've played it and lost because my opponent just draws better off of it. And there's times that you can't win the game unless you cast it, right?
Right.
So I think it's definitely a double-edged sword card. It's not something I guess as uphill as strictly advantageous as a Be Prepared, because a Be Prepared is like you're always dictating when you play that, and it's almost never really affecting you as much because you get to play, and you know exactly what's going to happen. Everything's going to die, right? Like there's
Right.
no surprise, gotcha, hand trap or something. With Whole New World, you never know what your opponent's going to draw. You can easily see a Be Prepared, Whole New World them, and then they can draw two more or draw another one, and then you're like, well,
Yeah.
that sucks. So I think the card is fine, but it is very risky, and it can be very, it can be very oppressive. I mean, like, yeah, I can literally have a perfect curve, play Whole New World, and just draw gas, and you'll never win,
Yeah.
and that's like the ideal steel sapphire going off, and yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the card is think the card is fine. I think maybe Be Prepared is just a little bit more overtuned than that card, but I guess you can value them both in the same realm of like, man, these cards are really game changers. And yeah, they could be game changers. The only problem is a whole new world could be a game changer for your opponent or for you. You know, it's really the luck of the draw. I've drawn dead off of whole new world, and it's just like,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
so.
Any last words about specifically about your deck that you played?
No, I mean I liked it. I just wish I would have seen like item removal, like timely. It's just hard because you're playing like this such a greedy deck, and you're like inking all your resources. And if you see these cards early, you're just like you have no problem. You have no choice but to ink them because then they're either getting inked or they're getting discarded.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see those like in an untimely kind of sequence, you get to the point in the game where you just don't have outs to what your opponent has, especially when you
Yeah.
start playing like these one ofs and two ofs and text and things like that, which I love doing. It's
Yeah.
just so much harder to do in this type of deck because of that, that whole like mechanic where you're just like trying to play super greedy and ink
Yeah.
all your cards and put them on your resources. But I also do like my opponent not knowing if
Yeah.
that happens or not because you're hiding a lot of your ink and
Right.
you're doing quills and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Like
So
half the card that go in the resource row, they don't. They Now, grant we
yeah,
can't take notes in this game, but we have memories.
exactly, yeah. Which obviously would make nothing to hide a lot. I think it probably is a lot worse, like in person, right?
Mhm.
Online a little bit better,
Yeah.
because of the pace of the game too. Like on in person, what happens is it's just like it. I feel like the games get drawn out a little bit more because there's
Right.
like that bluffing and then like that mind gaming, a
Oh
little
yeah.
pausing. It's really hard to keep up with stuff in person. I think with cards like that. So I think this deck is. I am gonna say probably a little bit worse if you were playing in person.
Fair enough. Well, Machado, you were here. Of course, we are representing PPG Entertainment. We have in a couple weeks MegaCon Orlando coming up. What can you just give the audience here some details about?
Yeah, so we're super excited, first of all, to kick off the 2024 season, to kind of like fill that void until we get these mysterious OPU announcements, which are super excited for. Obviously, those things were super exciting to hear about that they were indeed coming. I think what we wanted to do was not only partner with these conventions, but also make sure that there's some type of footprint for these games, even though they might not be these like record breaking attendance events that we saw at Miami TCG Con.
Right.
Because I have to say that agreement was a little bit more tailored to, as you remember, no con badge. A lot of these things that we typically wouldn't be able to do, having all the illustrators there, like so we figured, hey, why don't we use these conventions that have like 20,000 to 30,000 attendees and get Lorcana in front of their face? Even if it's
Right.
not something that's huge, at
Right.
least people know, man, out of all the trading card game tournaments that they could be doing, instead of doing every single game under the sun or whatever, we're prioritizing Lorcana, right?
Right.
So when they come into these whether it be a card room or if it's just like a gaming area, they see Lorcana being played and
Yeah.
they get into the game. Now that we have a lot more access to product, we've been able to actually sell all these items at MSRP and have them available for people that are just interested. And I can't tell you the amount of players that we've been able to add to the Lorcana organized play community by
Mhm.
just having this stuff. Whereas vendors on the show floor would be charging more or not necessarily really adding anything of value to the community or the player base. And that's where we kind of been able to kind of step in, make these more of like, I guess less of like a huge competitive event because I'm sure that itch is going to be scratched as we get organized play announcements, but rather getting this in front of the masses and
Right.
let them know, hey, not only does Disney have a card game, but you can also play this with your friends and family, with your wife, or you can play in this, semi-competitive tournament for nothing too flashy, but it lets them respect the card game and know that it's there. So we've been able to line up a few different convention events, and MegaCon is one of the biggest, if not the biggest convention almost, in the US, I think I could say. I mean, they have
Wow.
some really high profile celebrities
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not that type of celebrity guy, but I know that these celebrities don't typically step foot in these conventions, and they go to MegaCon because MegaCon is the show.
Fair enough.
So yeah, we have a small little case tournament going on. If you guys want to check it out, I think it's going to be really fun, as well as TCGCon Houston. This one is a little bit more competitive. We're actually using the same structure as Miami TCGCon because the con badge is so much cheaper. It's hard to negotiate, and see what conventions charge what on con badges, but because this is a smaller con in retrospect, we're able to put a little bit more price for it because I think the barrier to entry is much smaller than something like, let's say, a MegaCon, where we really don't have any wiggle room on what the badge is. And obviously the badge is a lot because you
Right.
have so many A-list celebrities that are going to be
Right.
there. So yeah,
Fair.
super excited for both of those events.
That's great. And Houston is where Houston, Texas is where TCGCon is, and that is going to be February 10th and 11th.
Yes. And that
Correct.
one is actually going to have some illustrators. So it's going to give you the most like Miami TCG Con feels if you're
Okay.
really going for like a more competitive prize pool and for a lower barrier of entry and just more like focused Lorcana content as far as like I'm sure more of the vendors will be carrying stuff there. I'm sure it's going to be a lot more competitive as far as pricing for a bunch of singles and different options
Mhm.
for stuff. And you're going to have illustrators there. I know that Kendall Hale's going to be there. I know a few other illustrators are going to be there. So I can't imagine that event is going to be nothing short of something that's more similar to a Miami TCG Con, atmosphere as opposed to some of the other, I guess, corporate conventions that we
Right.
partner with that we don't have as much wiggle room for, but we still want to have some real estate or some, actual branding for Lorcana so that people know, hey,
Yeah.
this is a thing. This is going to be, a regular
I mean,
event.
getting in front of that many people, just having the option of if they walk by and can see it is, it's definitely doing wonders for Disney Lorcana.
And it's going to really help down the stretch here as we get more organized play. So we're just trying to get as many people hooked onto playing the game, so that when inevitably these organized play announcements come out, they have somewhere to really, either attend or look forward to or train for or whatever.
Okay. All right. So before we got to play a little bit of game here, right? So this is a game called Repeat After Me.
Okay.
I will say a statement, then you will repeat the statement and include the answer to it. Cool.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. So the number one reason to play Sapphire Steel is
The number one reason to play Sapphire Steel is to essentially get a +7 after you have like no cards in hand and seeing be prepared in your opponent's discard and just like, you know, just rocking it, like that is the best feeling. Going from 0 cards in hand to a full hand, full ink, and then seeing like your opponent's outs in the discard are just like party time, baby.
I love it. I love it. All right. All right. So my initial reaction to the organized play announcement was
My initial reaction to the organized play announcement was give us the dates, give us the locations. I need to book my flights. Why are you teasing me?
that's very, very fair. That's very fair. We kind of covered this already, but the best time to play Nothing to Hide is
The best time to play Nothing to Hide is right after a fishbone quill. You use that extra ink that you weren't going to play anything with, see your opponent's hand, and then kind of just be able to play it out. Or really down the stretch when your opponent has a nice little hand after the whole new world. So after the whole new world, you see what they have, and then you just play out appropriately because they already have the majority of what they have. So they can only draw 1 or 2 cards a turn, whatever. So I think those are the 2 key times that you want to play that.
the one card I would consider banning in Lorcana is
The one card I would really consider banning in Disney Lorcana is this one's hard. I want to say Fox. That card is just too good.
it's a great
Fox is just
answer.
too good. Oh my god! At least make it uninkable. Jesus,
Such a great answer.
so good. Oh,
All right. One final one. The best location revealed so far is I'm judging you, by the way.
oh. The best location revealed so far is non-biased answer: the Forbidden Mountain. Let's go,
Let's
baby. Let's
go.
go.
All right. So recently in the end of the podcast, we've been doing these small would you rather. So I did a few interesting ones for you that are a little bit different, right? So I'm going to put up something on the screen. Some of these are not going to be 2 choices. I lied on this one. I didn't fix it. But the first one for would you rather is choose one. If you could only play one of these in your deck, which one would you choose? Madam Mim
Oh,
Fox
Fox.
or Merlin Goat?
Fox, 100%. That card is just, it just enables so many other cards, and as more cards like more ETBs and things like that that you can abuse, it's just like it's just so sick. Like being able to bounce Lady Tremaine and Ursula's and Elsa's just too good. Merlin is great. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm not that type of player where like I want to like this is an Goat to me is an aggro card. Fox to me is more of a mid range control, and I'm just like a mid range control guy. So
Absolutely. All right, so this is one is from the community. It's very important. We need to know. Choose one for your Pokemon Master Journey: Squirtle, Bulbasaur, or Charmander.
I really like Squirtle, man. It's just like a water
Squirtle's
types are
fun.
just like my jam, you know.
I love it. I love it. That's a good choice. All right, so this one might be hard. I need you to choose one. To either play in Worlds or PPG hosting Worlds.
Oh man, that is the age old. That's the age old question because honestly, we've hosted nationals and worlds, and it's just like honestly, I like being able to make sure that that is executed to the best possible, and then I feel like once the format is done, I mean, like once I guess once the standards have been like created or established or whatever, obviously I want the opportunity for other tournament organizers or coworkers or whatever to be able to run it without.
Mhm,
But I feel like if it was the first time, I
mhm.
want to be able to make sure that everything is ran and executed exactly according to plan because there's so much oversight, there's so attention to details, things that just get missed that the common person just happens to make because it's just natural, right?
Yeah,
Like it's so hard to just be on top of every single like dotted I, crossed T. So I think if it's like the especially if it's the first world championship, like I think I would just have to be able to organize it because I want to make sure that I'm part of the success of it and
right.
at least the set the bar high
The
essentially,
building
right?
block. Yeah,
Is my biggest, yeah, is my biggest thing. As much as a player, I would love to. It's just being able to execute it. I think my passion as a player, I think, allows me to do that a
right,
lot more effective than others because I know that that's a special moment and that everything needs to go literally according to plan and professionally executed. If not, then you take away the prestige, you take away what it means, and it becomes something that's not respected. And I
right.
think it's a special moment for players. And as somebody that's hosted a world championship, I know how important that is.
Yeah,
So yeah,
awesome. Tough answer. I know. I know.
it's it's so tough, especially when you love the game. I really
Right.
do love Lorcana, and that's the only reason why I play it. It's not really like a business thing for me. Obviously, it is to make sure that my employees and my team and all these guys are succeeding and eating with us. But yeah, it's just such a great game, honestly.
Fair enough. So we discussed the February events coming up, but past that, we're already planning further off into the distance here. So tell me about the Lorcana case tournament on Saturday, March 2nd, which will have Inklings legal.
Yeah. So this one is at a very interesting con. This con is not your typical mega con, huge corporate con. It's more of like a small, smallish con. It's actually funny enough, centered around crypto, and we have nothing to do with crypto. I'm not like a crypto advocate or
Sure.
spokesperson. I don't personally involve myself with it at all. I know a lot of people do, but what's funny about that is that this event is actually free to attend if you have like a crypto wallet, which I don't think
Interesting.
costs anything. It's just a
I
wallet. I don't think you need to buy anything or anything
have
like
no
that.
idea.
So look into it because these guys, when they pitched me, I was like, it's already really hard to get people to buy a con badge, but their whole thing is almost on a completely different angle. So I was like, hey, let's just bring it because he said that last year and the year before that a lot of people were asking for One Piece and Lorcana. So I was like, hey, let's just do it. So yeah, these guys very interesting, and that's going to be in Denver. So the first time we're in the West Coast, West Coast,
In
for
2024.
this year or ever for Lorcana. So really
Maybe.
interesting to see who comes out to that. Yeah.
All right, and then our next one is in Las Vegas, which I know I have some friends in Las Vegas that have been dying for a tournament, so this is really cool for them to hear. So tell me about this one.
Another West Coast. You got back to back West Coast guys. I know that we've been giving you back to back back to back East Coast. Now you got back to back West Coast, and it's going to be super exciting because Level Up, if you're not familiar, very very well known in the space for their competitive tournaments. You know, gaming, esports. I believe there's going to be some like other things like Bandai's Union Arena is going to be there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a One Piece regional or other things there. So definitely like a gamer con. Definitely, if you guys haven't been to Level Up Expo, one, it's in Las Vegas, so you already got like 9 out of 10 reasons to go in the first place.
Yeah.
But two, Level Up is just like one of the best ran conventions, and they just have so many different attractions. Like I think last time I was there, they had like wrestling out in the main like floor, and just so much stuff.
Nice.
It's like really cool to see. And Level Up was our first year last year. This is our second year. They really wanted us to have some type of like trading card game tournament because last year they only had One Piece regional. So they were like, "Hey, why don't you bring a slew of events?" And we're like, "Okay, let's do it." And so, yeah, we're going to be doing Level Up Expo, Las Vegas. And both of these are going to be 1 day events. So if you don't have to do that second day con badge, we've kind of understood after the feedback from players that if we're going to do this at a con and it's not going to be like your 200 plus player tournament, let's get it all done in 1 day so that you guys can get your playmats, get your boxes / cash. I think all these are going to be product now, to make it a little bit easier for people to digest, especially those newcomers that want to just play and then get more cards.
Right.
And then if they want to be there for the whole weekend, we'll still have 8-man pods like drafts and constructed, just something like small pickup games that you can still play if you're going to be there for the entire weekend. But that was the general like feedback that we got, and that's why we've kind of tweaked the structure a little bit just so
Yeah.
that it meets expectations for players and it's not something that's like too competitive or too big for its means because of the barrier to entry. So,
Yeah. Learn by doing, right?
yep.
Now, the one thing that we've had in the past is we've had, the first three events had streaming. The next event, you guys record it and released it on YouTube. What's our plans for these events coming up? Are we going to go try for streams? We're going to try just doing YouTube things. What's our plans?
Yeah, so we tried recording at Holiday Matsuri, and the quality for some reason came out like terribly bad on the back end. Like it looked fine when we set it up and we recorded things to like
Yeah.
get it commentated over afterwards. We couldn't do anything live because it was like midweek.
Yeah.
So like our whole stream team had their like day job that
Right.
they had
Right.
to do. So we were like, hey, we'll just record it for you. You guys, either live stream it on the weekend or commentate over it. And they go back to see the footage and they're like, well, it's just like really bad. If you want to put it up, it's your it's up to you. And I was like, you know what, I'll take your guys' judgment, whatever
Yeah.
you think. If you think it looks just worse for us to post, then we won't. But I had the whole setup there and we recorded some games. I'm just really unfortunate because we had some really nice feature matches there,
Yeah.
like some amber steel discard deck that just completely like just took out this ruby amethyst deck that was really sweet. And that's where we saw a lot of that amethyst steel deck,
Yeah.
countering these ruby amethyst decks. So it was unfortunate. Our idea is to make sure that we have these either remote casted live stream or just recorded and re-uploaded by streamers, depending on like what our production team's availability is. And then for something that's like really large scale, the next event that we can like essentially really remove that barrier to entry, we want to
Yeah.
make sure that we have that live streaming production that we did at Miami TCG Con. But obviously, as you could imagine, that's much more of an expensive, I guess,
Right.
type of experience than something that we've been trying to do for the last few events. So yeah, that's the game plan.
Sounds good, Machado, as always. Before we get out of here, any last words?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's like continued to participate in these events and kind of helped us with your feedback or your comments or any type of stuff like that, because we're always looking to innovate and make sure that like the experience can kind of tailor what players are kind of expecting, especially when they come to these more casual convention environment. But at the same time, we're trying to make sure that we execute things as professionally as possible. And then hopefully, if we're given any type of like major events, that these things that everybody kind of like saw at Miami TCG Con will
Right.
continue to get reestablished in there. But yeah, I'm still super excited to put on these events, and really excited to see what the future of Lorcana organized play, both unofficial and official, has in store for us.
Sounds great. Coming up next weekend or 2 weekends, right? Yep.
Yeah, 2 weekends. Yep,
Two-weekends,
yep.
about a week and a half. We have MegaCon in Orlando, so if you're looking to find George anywhere, he will definitely be here. Thank you so much for joining, discussing your top 8 run in the pack 270 player tournament. Huge congrats to you, man. That's a big feat.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Really appreciate the chance to play, and I appreciate the organizers, they and them that put on a really great event. And I really didn't have any issues with it. And Lorcana Plate Network, first time on there,
Yeah.
really wanted to get a feel for that
Yeah.
tournament software, and it seemed pretty smooth.
Yeah.
So I was overall very satisfied with the event. And honestly, I love supporting other type of tournament organizers and always trying to learn and see how these things play out. And
Right.
honestly, I think that the community feedback was great, and I really love what that team is doing over there.
Yeah. Huge success for them. Again, back to back, pretty nice weekends. I thought the timing of the event was really good. So I mean, you're talking 9 round tournaments. It's got to move, and yeah, they moved very, very well.
Yep, it was very nice.
All right, George. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Thank you, guys.